Even though I build buildings and I pursue my architecture, I pursue it as an artist. I deliberately keep a tiny studio. I don't want to be an architectural firm. I want to remain an artist. We learn to put discipline in the haircuts by using actual geometry, actual architectural shapes and bone structure. The cut had to be perfect and layered beautifully, so that when a woman shook it, it just fell back in. New York being what it is, our museums are vertical, not horizontal. That means the stumbling blocks to architectural clarity are unavoidable, but certainly surmountable. People say I design architectural icons. If I design a building and it becomes an icon, that's okay. The ultimate pleasure of architecture lies in the most forbidden parts of the architectural act, where limits are perverted and prohibitions are transgressed. When Oscar Niemeyer died on December 5, 2012, 10 days before his 105th birthday, he was universally regarded as the very last of the 20th century's major architectural masters. An astonishing survivor whose most famous accomplishment, Brasilia, was the climactic episode of utopian high modern urbanism. The challenge of a cathedral is very good for architectural inventiveness. It's unfortunate that a certain type of stripped-down classicism became the in-house architectural language for 20th century fascism. Can an architectural language recover from such an association? Yes, I think it can, because in the end what you're talking about is a column and beam. I was in school for architecture, and when you're in school for a creative discipline, so much of what you produce comes out of inspiration from other people. The more you're exposed to architecturally, the better you can develop your own language out of that history of architectural thought. I am but an architectural composer. It was always my intention that the frieze should be housed in a room which would provide a suitable architectural frame for it. As a teenager, my father took me to the shows at the Architectural Association and to places like Milton Keynes back when it was first being built, but I couldn't find anything for me. There seemed to be despair at the possibility of the built environment possessing any imagination in the real world. I wear the same black suit. I have 5 of them. I pair them with a red scarf. I was wearing a red scarf when I won the first architectural competition of my career. I like architectural shapes. You can't put any shape on any body, except on the runway. In reality, it has to look and feel flattering. My father, an architectural photographer, was an incurable tinkerer, maker and mender. I think space, architectural space, is my thing. It's not about facade, elevation, making image, making money. My passion is creating space. I think when you look at architectural photography, it doesn't help to have piles of old clothes lying on the floor. Architectural photography sets up an artifice. The size thing is not some gimmick or attention-getting trick, but a genuine undercurrent of the work. Frank Gehry, for instance, likes to imagine his buildings as sculptures. I like to imagine my sculptures as architectural. Light is architectural. It is sculptural. I'd say that my profession ends where architectural thinking ends. Architectural thinking in terms of thinking about programs and organizational structure. These abstractions play a role in many other disciplines, and those disciplines are now defining their architectures as well. All fine architectural values are human values, else not valuable. All those involved in the construction of an architectural design, from the architect to the builder, have an attachment to the architecture, although it's difficult to quantify the attachment. Good buildings make and are made by their settings, and they are appropriately different in different locations. Climate, culture, topography and materials have helped create regional architectural languages that seem curiously right for their locations and for all times. Supply and demand regulate architectural form. There is no sadder tale in the annals of architecture than the virtual disappearance of the defining architectural form of the modern movement, publicly sponsored housing. I am always coming up with architectural metaphors when I think about writing, but I think one of the things that draw us to literature is that it gives us this very attractive illusion that there is meaning in the world, things connect. The Crystal Cathedral is not an attempt to be an architectural ego statement. It's probably the ultimate spiritual and psychological statement that could be made in architectural terms. A structure becomes architectural, and not sculptural, when its elements no longer have their justification in nature. Any architectural project we do takes at least 4 or 5 years, so increasingly there is a discrepancy between the acceleration of culture and the continuing slowness of architecture. I think of novels in architectural terms. You have to enter at the gate, and this gate must be constructed in such a way that the reader has immediate confidence in the strength of the building. I used to love to draw. I didn't want to go to art class because I felt that would be too corny when I was young, but architectural drafting was the cool thing to do because there was more precision. It taught me a lot about building and structures and doorways and frames and windowsills. Born out of this, starting around the 17th century was the Baroque era. It is my view that it is one of the architectural peak periods in Western civilization. In Britain, we've tended to replace the kind of architectural culture valued in much of Europe with an in-flight magazine lifestyle, all branding, marketing and accessibility, a word that usually means dumbing down the structural or biogenetic relations of plant products as deduced from the recognizable architectural components of the molecules have been consistent guides in my investigations. I go to the studio every day, but I don't paint every day. I love playing with my architectural models. I love making plans. I could spend my life arranging things. They couldn't wait to get me out. My dad found my place, my mom helped me pack, and my brother was making architectural plans for my bedroom. It was just what you do at 18. Of course I believe imaginative architecture can make a difference to people's lives, but I wish it was possible to divert some of the effort we put into ambitious museums and galleries into the basic architectural building blocks of society. Since I am a Japanese man who's been building through the experience of Japanese architecture, my actual designs come from Japanese architectural concepts, although they're based on Western methods and materials. Maybe, just maybe, we shall at last come to care for the most important, most challenging, surely the most satisfying of all architectural creations, building cities for people to live in. I hope that America as a whole, and especially its architects, will become more seriously involved in producing a new architectural culture that would bring the nation to the apex, where it has stood before, and lead the world. Nothing is really typical of my efforts. I'm simply casting about for better ways to crystallize and capture certain strong impressions, involving the elements of time, the unknown, cause and effect, fear, scenic and architectural beauty, and other seemingly ill-assorted things, which persist in clamoring for expression. Snøhetta promotes a more democratic workplace atmosphere than most other architectural offices. This may merely reflect prevalent employment practices in Scandinavia, but Snøhetta places a stronger emphasis on group participation in the design process than typical high-style firms. I see the Beijing National Stadium as an architectural project. I accepted Herzog and de Meuron's invitation to collaborate on the design, and our proposal won the competition. From beginning to end, I stayed with the project. I am committed to fostering relationships between a city and its architecture. The work that launched Snøhetta into the architectural big leagues was their Oslo Opera House, which will certainly rank among the firm's highlights whatever else they may do. Although this is by any measure a triumph of city planning, the building itself is not quite a masterpiece, though very fine indeed. I love the streets of Kolkata, and I admire the old architectural buildings. I was a very interested art student. I was always into that part of school, and when I got into high school I went into architectural drafting. It gave me an understanding of how to build things, and it's really helped me put things in perspective. With my music and my movies, to me it's all art. It fills one with a sense of architectural possibility. Profit and bottom line, the contemporary mantra, eliminates the very source of architectural expression. In Italy, there are so many significant architectural structures in history such as the Pantheon in Rome, or the Duomo. I am equally proud of all of my architectural projects. It's always rewarding to see an ambitious design become reality. Visit our website for more quotes, quoting.com.